We're building an inn, and the little property the dad started with was a couple of 100 acres, and it's about 1,500 acres now, and it's amazing.
Maybe we need to do a concert there.
Okay, I'm thinking about the acoustics. I'm up for anything. It's
we'll talk.
Okay.
Beegie's people. We'll talk to your people. You actually have people. Beegie's people. It's me.
Well, I'm retired. I have a people. No, I have about a third of a people, and it's Kim. And she's
Kim's amazing.
She's as big as 6 people as far as her brain.
Yeah, she's amazing. I'm amazing. So grateful to know her. She's been marvelous to get to know. Okay, a few more questions about whiskey.
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us about somebody wants to know more about the ambassador program that you started?
I did start it. And I guess that along with 46 were the 2 things I did. Well, but it really didn't start working until I retired. Start working right. The idea there was up until 1980, all of our customers were in Kentucky. or maybe a little bit in Cincinnati, a little bit in Southern Indiana, a little bit in Nashville because I went to school there. But that was about it. So we knew a lot of our customers. And the marketing strategy was Dad was on all the statewide bank boards and the contractors, the road contractors and all. And then I was on a university board. And so we knew all of our customers. And then on August 1, 1980, all that blew apart when the Wall Street Journal did a front page feature on my father. Then you had bars and restaurants all over the country
wanting product.
And we didn't have distribution. We didn't have much of it. And I'm afraid we were going to lose the one thing we had, which was personal connections with the great majority of our customers. Yeah. And so that's where the ambassador came from. It was an idea not to generate sales, just the opposite, but it was to continue the connection and the personal approach to doing business.
Wow. So what does it take to become an ambassador?
You have to be really smart and a really good piano player.
Really?
We only have 6. We have ambassadors all over the world now, and it's they get to come to the distillery after 6 years. The 6 years we put a barrel away with some folks that have become ambassadors on that particular day, and then 6 years later, it's a trick to get them to the distillery so we can meet them personally.
Oh,
and that's essentially what I have been doing in my retirement, and I love it a lot more than running the company. Of course, I'm 80 years old now, but I mean, it's a phenomenal retirement because I have 60, 70 people a day that will come from all over the world just to get a couple bottles. And then we'll have, in a normal summer, we'll have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 people traipsing through the grounds. And I mean, it's just good to make new friends all the time.
It's great.
Okay. Well, we're going to study the ambassador program a little bit more. We're going to figure out how to become ambassadors. That's what we're going to do.
Just go online, makersmark.com.
Yeah. Okay. We'll put that information on for everyone too. Okay. I'm going to let you pick which one you want to answer or whatever. There are 2 more questions about whiskey. One person wrote in and said, where is red winter wheat grown? Is it only grown in Kentucky, or do you get it from someplace else? I'm guessing is what they want to know.
All right. Here's the concept.
Okay, go ahead.
It is best when the water and the whiskey come from the same soil. Okay. So whatever grains you use, it's better to use the grains that are grown locally where you have your watershed. Okay. And in our case, we have underground springs. So we have from the very beginning decided that we were going to use the grains that were in the immediate area. And that meant we were going to work with one farmer. And that farmer has become amazing now. He's rode along with us, and it's been wow. But we have 3. We have corn, we have rye, and we have red winter wheat. And the purpose, red winter wheat's never been paid much attention to. It's a very soft grain, but it's used primarily during the winter to keep erosion down in fields. And, we don't have a lot of flatlands in our part of the country.
Cover crop kind of thing?
It's not a cover crop in that it doesn't add the phosphates and the other things like that. It's not an alternate rotation crop, but it's to keep down erosion. And it's a very, very soft grain. And that's what Dad was looking for, to take the bite out. The bitterness comes from the acids in the wood, the barrel, and it also comes from the harshness of the chemicals when the grains fermented and distilled.
Yeah. Okay.
And you don't get that same thing with wheat.
Huh. And that's
why you don't pucker when you put Maker's Mark in your mouth.
All right. This is kind of along the same lines, maybe. Somebody was asking about Rob's conservation efforts and the limestone cellar. Can you explain?
Well, that was another fiasco.
Oh.
The limestone cellar, it was an afterthought.
Okay.
The thought was 46. And what we didn't realize was that the finishing process that we go through after the Makers is fully matured, we add seared French oak staves into the barrel. And what we didn't realize was that works great in the winter, in the late fall and the early spring. In the summer, it's a disaster because the whiskey expands and goes back into the wood in the barrel, and it draws out tannic acids. So we said, oh my God, we got to have a cellar to keep it cool all the time when it is being finished. So I said, I can do this. I'm an engineer. So we bring the people down. We got an architect working on the drawings, and the geologist comes down and said, you can't have a cellar here because there's too much shale interspersed with the limestone. You have to take the mountain down, tuck this thing back in, and then rebuild the mountain around it. Well, that was okay, except for the budget. We went about $2 million over budget, and that's when I got uninvited to all future construction projects. But that's what it's for. It's
Okay.
The cellar is there to keep a constant low temperature during the finishing, the 9-week finishing part of the process.
You literally moved mountains for this.
Just one. Now, if y'all drink too much and we have to build a second one, there we go.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Do either of you have questions about whiskey before I move on?
No, I was just going to say that the cellar wasn't a fiasco because it worked. It just went over budget, right?
Way over budget.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only time I've seen my son a little bit flustered with me during my retirement period.
But it worked.
Yeah, it worked great.
Yeah.
It's
Let
good.
me give you another idea. When you think of bourbon, you really think of the old fashioned and the Manhattan, and that's what connects Kentucky and New York. Is the old fashioned came from the Pendennis Club in Louisville, and the Manhattan, of course, from the city. And that's one of the things our little group does. The bullshitters.
Yeah.
Is we each have our own favorite version of the Manhattan. We kind of focus on the Manhattan. And this little bar we goes to, they have special ingredients in there for this little group. And depends on who's buying drinks at night, that's how the Manhattans are made.
I'll be darned.
Some use bitters, some use Italian vermouth. Those of us that know what we're doing, we use French vermouth, softer. Don't use bitters in a Manhattan, but it's everybody to their own opinion. We have a lot of fun with that, and it drives the poor bartenders crazy.
Now, Roger, when you make Manhattans and old fashions, do you try different things, or do you have a set?
I'm afraid to say.
You should come up and join the group.
He's a very smart guy. He could fit in.
Actually, what I've been doing lately, I've been going with the Carpano Antico, the Italian vermouth. See? That's why I shouldn't say it. Okay, what do you recommend? No. I'm taking notes. What do you recommend?
Well, the concept.
Yeah.
The concept is to have the main ingredients of a cocktail blend with each other, one not dominate the other. And unless you're using a really high strength, overaged bourbon, the Carpano dominates.
Yeah.
The French vermouths are a little softer.
Well, I've kind of mitigated that by using less of it. I don't use the full ratio that most recipes recommend.
Okay, my recommendation is vermouth is a wonderful complement to bourbon, but it's not the bitterness that you get in Carpano because you have to use so little of it. You're right.
Right.
Try one of the French vermouths. There's not very many of them available.
Right.
And even the inexpensive ones, just especially now. See, I'm prejudiced because Makers is softer, so you'd expect we would use a softer vermouth. But those flavors really, really complement. And then just a teaspoon of cherry juice.
Right. And the other thing I've been doing is, some people say use bourbon, some people say use rye. Well, I've been using half and half.
Well, that's indecisiveness.
Right. I think it's much too early to adopt a wait and see attitude.
I think you're right.
Oh my goodness.
It seems diplomatic.
Yeah. So what's your recipe?
Well, I use 2.5 parts Makers 101 proof. We have, to me, that's the best proof for the cocktail, something around 100. And then you can use enough of the vermouth, 2 to 1, 2.5 to, I'm a 2.5 to 1. Most of my friends are 2 to 1. French vermouth. Dolan's is the one we use, DOLAN.
Yeah, I've used that. Yeah.
And I love it. And then I get the Italian cherries.
Now, if you use the vermouth, do you use bitters as well?
No.
Okay.
But remember, that's the prejudice that you have, or that we have,
Mm-hmm.
is because my father was so anti-bitter. I mean, he worked so hard to get rid of the bitterness that it kind of shaped my palate.
Sure.
I was a late adopter.
I'm making notes here. Yeah. Well,
but if you go to some of the high proof, and I'm thinking about George T. Stagg, say, you would want to use your vermouth for sure, and use it liberally. 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1.
What do you think
Now,
about?
it'll be a wake up call, but
What do you think about rye whiskey for our Manhattan?
I think it's good. Then you wouldn't be so limited to the French vermouth because rye whiskey's got it's got more sourness to it.
Right.
So then that rationalizes better, I think, with Martini and Rossi and the other Italian vermouth.
Well,
but I've still got 4 unopened bottles of that stuff you use, and I would be happy to give it to you. It's very expensive, and it's just sitting there.
Okay, now the last question: what cherries?
Well, that's a little bit of an issue. You don't want to use the maraschino cherries. You want to get the Italian cherries that are in the real dark, meaty cherries. Yeah. Okay, but you got a problem with those, and that is the juice is so viscous it just settles to the bottom.
It does. It does not mix in.
Well, here's the secret. The cherries are great. You want to take some of the cherry juice from the maraschino cherries and blend it until you get something that will stay in solution. And it's generally about 2 parts of the cherry juice from the Italian cherries and about 1 part from the maraschino. And if you get that consistency, it won't settle to the bottom. It's a small compromise.
That seems like a fair compromise.
Yeah.
Well, it took us about 5 years to figure that out now. So it wasn't anything that came to us initially.
Sure.
Well, there's research to be done here.
No, not research. Practice.
Oh, yeah.
Practice.
What's the short square bottle of the very expensive Italian cherries, the ones you're talking about with the dark syrup?
I'm just dead right now. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I just can't. That's
somebody just recommended another cherry that I tried, and it was one of those bright red, like artificial colored things with a thin juice, and I didn't like that at all.
No. These are good. You just need to thin out the juice so it's functioning.
Right.
There is I was just doing a little research here. I think it's Luxardo.
Luxardo, that's it.
Yeah. That's good. That's good
That is
stuff.
real good.
It's a good cherry, but that's the one with the thick syrup that does not blend. So I think what I'm going to try is the Maker's 101, the French Vermouth, the Luxardo cherries with some other maraschino juice.
Yes.
All right.
That's perfect.
And no bitters.
Send me a text. What you think, really? And
Okay.
if you're if you feel like you wasted your time, those 4 bottles are yours.
He's trying really hard to get rid of those bottles.
I am. I feel so guilty.
I have a question about another thing that I used to drink. My late father-in-law used to make these on special occasions. They were called a sidecar.
Oh, I've heard of a sidecar.
Oh, sure. That's.
They were good, but I never asked him what was in them, and so I wondered if you know.
I really don't. It's when the only place I've ever seen
something. I don't know what exactly.
Roger's looking it up, I bet.
No, I'm making notes so I don't forget what he just said.
You know what? If you're watching right now, send information on what a sidecar is.
Okay.
So the live chat people will tell us what a sidecar is.
There you go. Thanks.
Get the audience participation in this later. They're not watching right now. But.
Well, if that's the case, we might be able to sell these bottles I've got. Maybe
yes, you probably could.
Mine.
Although I guess I should say we're not making any money off of any of this for this YouTube thing. We've never actually had somebody from. We get dinged every now and then because we want to use other people's music and we don't monetize, but I don't know what they're going to do when we tell them we're talking whiskey the whole time, bourbon. All right, now, okay. Any other questions about? If you think of something, you should ask. But we have lots of music questions for all of you. So can we move on to the Q&A of all things music?
Sure.
There's whiskey and bourbon in this too. Okay. First, one of our friends, Dirk Blocker, I usually don't say who asks these questions, but we love Dirk. He was a guest on the show. Dirk is an actor. His dad played Haas on Bonanza. And he writes the first part. Actually, he has a couple questions, one for Beegie, but that one will come later. This is, Dear Mr. Samuels, I see on your website that you have been willing to impersonate Little Richard and Elvis if needed to market your fine bourbon. Do you find that imbibing a snort or two of your product enhances these performances? And can we have a demonstration of, say, Tutti Frutti or Blue Suede Shoes? And he said, P.S. Standard Maker's Mark is our go-to for cocktails and parched throats, while your Sublime 46 is reserved for evenings by the fire, listening to BG and Monica, of course. So, yeah. So he's got a request for Blue Suede Shoes or Tutti Frutti on here.
You saw the Little Richard effort. The Elvis impersonation came from the fact that the Kentucky media just wears everybody out about who are your celebrity guests for Derby.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided this one time I was going to screw with them a little bit. So I told them, I wouldn't tell them. I said, we had this really famous secret celebrity guest, which we didn't have. And I thought they'd drop it. And then I find out that they're sending people down to our Distillery brunch to see who this is and make a big deal out of it. Well, the only guest we had staying at the house was Andy Rooney. Okay, Andy Rooney has had no sense of humor. He was funny on television, and his wife is wonderful, and they were fun. But he had a show the Wednesday night, Thursday morning. He flies into Louisville. We had a helicopter waiting for him to bring him to the distillery. And I got panicked about 2 days before this party and figured I got to have a celebrity guest or I'm going to get trashed by the media. So that led to the Elvis costume. It also led to about 6 dozen jelly donuts, which I was handing out to people as they were coming to the party. And everything was okay until Andy Rooney came and got offended by the Elvis costume.
Oh no.
But nobody asked me to sing or anything, so I was okay. No, you can have, it's pretty easy to have a boring derby party, and I just figured Elvis would lighten it up. We always did interesting things. We had airplane fights, bombers from World War One, drop sandbags with explosives in them over the party, just all kind of goofy stuff.
That'll sober you up quickly.
Hey, another one we had when Rick Pitino came back to Kentucky to coach, and he won the '96 championship and really surprised everybody. We had sold a commemorative bottle for his foundation, and the proceeds, we were going to present him the check. So we had, just as we're presenting the check, we had Jesse and Frank James ride up the hill on horses in full uniform, take it away from him.
That's fun. It's unfortunate that you don't have a good, fun sense of humor.
Yeah.
You just take things way too seriously, Bill.
I can't stand boring.
Yes. Well, I'm not bored right now. I'll tell you that. This is loads of fun. Okay. Tell me this. This is for anyone who wants to answer. Somebody wrote in and asked, what's your favorite music to sip whiskey to?
Oh, this is easy. Beegie and Dennis.
Oh,
bless your heart.
Can I say Dennis? I would just love him.
I wish
you guys
I wish that I would have.
music.
I wish that I would put this together. I'd had him on the show with us tonight.
Yeah,
we talk to him often.
He's done several of our things. Yeah,
he's such a good guy. He's such a nice guy too.
Yeah.
I always like to tell people that he's really super nice, and he's as nice as he is talented. So always good to know that stuff.
I think he's if he lived anywhere else, he would be another Dexter Gordon or Sonny Stitt or somebody. He plays like the big boys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's just the best.
Yeah. He really is.
He's so humble and just kind of, if you compliment him, he takes his hat off and says, "Oh shucks."
Yeah, "Oh shucks," yeah.
But he loves that saxophone, and it's showing.
You two guys are amazing together, I'll tell you that.
Do you know what else he loves? He loves whiskey. He's one of our whiskey. Yeah, he's one of our drinking buddies. So, yeah.
Well, don't let him drink anything except Kentucky whiskey now.
Okay, I'll tell him. All right, Roger. What do you like to? What do you think about when you're sipping whiskey? What do you want to listen to?
Broad spectrum, but it's usually got to be something swinging hard.
Yeah.
I'm going to Count Basie.
Yeah.
I'm going to Monty Alexander Trio.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I love those.
What about you, Beach?
It depends. If the weather is weird or I'm not up to stuff, I might say I like to listen to June Christie or Billie Holiday or somebody like that. But I also, when I'm feeling good, I think Roger and I have similar tastes. And I like to hear a big band or a really great trio of some kind. And, I just like it all,
Yeah.
And it's nice to sit in a chair with a nice drink and let somebody else do the work on the radio.
I'm going to take the next question. How have you been How have you compensated or substituted for the absence of in-person concerts? This was something that everyone in every industry, every way of life has had to figure out how to go from in-person to virtual in some capacity. And Roger, actually, I'll tie in another question. Someone asked for an update on NJW, so this seems like a good time to answer that. But I'll say from our perspective, obviously, we shut things down faster than a lot of people because our rooms are small that we play in. We like intimate settings. And we didn't want to put anyone, ourselves included, in a position to get sick. That was just never an option for us. So we're not compensated in the sense of a monetary thing, but this is what's making our world function, just staying in front of people. And it is more of a gift to people, we felt like. And selfishly, it was a way for us to see our friends. First thing we did was call Roger and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this little thing. Would you do it with us and figure it out? Because we've never gone this long without seeing it's not even about being peers at this moment. It's about being pals and wanting to be with your people. And so this is the way we did that. And I mean, this is the way we're making it up. But we're also kind of listening to some archival things and thinking how to put them out in the world. And, eventually the world will open and we'll get back to all the things we did before. But we're lucky we didn't starve or anything like that through this. A lot of people hurt more than we did. But the happy hour is how we stayed in touch. But Roger, you've got a whole other thing going on with the workshop. So what's going on with you?
Plus teaching.
Well, we were kind of forced into the online teaching. We had a double whammy in that in about March of 2019, the property where the workshop was located was sold out from under us. And for those of you who might not know, the workshop is like this jazz education and performance venue. And we teach, 4 nights a week and do live jazz on weekends. Well, the property was sold, so we had to vacate. We had until like the first part of 2020. So January 2020, we moved out. We found another location, smaller, and in the meantime, found a location larger that we're going to rebuild. So we're going to move to the smaller place and do business there while we're building the new place. And then COVID hit. So now we couldn't have anybody in the smaller place. So we shut down the smaller place and put all that stuff in storage. So now the entire jazz workshop is in storage bins while we're trying to build this space.
Oh, man.
And we're dealing with ADA regulations. We're dealing with fire marshal. We're dealing with codes this, codes that. And every time we turn a corner, we hit a brick wall. So it's taken months and months and months. But we're about a week or two away from finishing the whole thing.
Wow.
Oh,
that's
great.
worth. By the time this airs, your doors may be open to some degree.
To some degree. I think March we will be moving offices into the new space. With the COVID regs, who knows when we can have real live human beings in there. But the ADA stuff has just like been kicking our butts. We had to completely overhaul 2 bathrooms because of ADA regulations. We had to redo the entrance to the building with a concrete landing and a ramp. And other than that, we moved a bunch of doors and walls to make it more accessible for what we needed to do in there. We had to build a big performance space. And now I'm pricing light systems, curtains, and sound systems for the new performance space. So we got to get all that done. But it's all coming together, finally.
That's
Finally.
The flooring and the carpeting is all in.
Wow.
And the latest ADA thing was, that we were trying to not spend what we didn't have to spend. So we thought maybe we could get away with 1 bathroom being the way it was. And our architect came in the other day and said, no, look at my drawings. You cannot do this. So last minute we had to tear out another bathroom and go again.
Mm.
Move walls. And the old tile floors, every time you move a wall, you're missing tile. So today they said, well, we can't find tile to match. What are you going to do now?
Oh,
So every time we turn around, there's a new fire to stamp out. We discovered we needed to install a sprinkler system. And after we did that, we discovered that our burglar alarm system won't accommodate the fire alarm system. So we had to hire the company to build another system for the fire alarm for the sprinklers.
yeah. You should pour yourself another drink right now. Thank God for Maker's Mark 46.
At any rate, I just keep stamping out those fires, and we've got a great team. Our executive director and our development director are doing really good jobs of raising money and keeping people supporting us, and we've got new programs coming.
Yeah.
One of our new programs is something called Jazz AM. And what we're going to do is Saturday mornings, we're going to do family jazz events and get families with kids in to hear jazz and have a good time playing and dancing to music and just learning about the art form.
That's great.
Yeah.
Kids,
that's actually very important.
Community outreach.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Well, speaking of, I'm sorry, Beegie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, kids are so used to listening to things on their telephone or their computer that if they hear live music, it'll mean something to them if they do it enough, I think.
Well, especially before they reach the age where they're conditioned by the industry as to what they should be listening to and what's good and bad. For parties I've played over the years, the best audiences have always been under 8 years old.
Yeah, it's true.
Actually, that brings up the next question beautifully. Somebody texted to BG, I have a teenage daughter who is quite a proficient classical pianist, but she really would like to learn to play jazz piano now. What is a good next step? Private lessons, music major in college, a specific instruction book method, or just woodshedding on her own while listening to the greats? So Roger, BG, do you guys have a quick
all
little...
those things would be good.
Yeah.
Every one of those things would be good. But she needs to listen to live music as much as she can, I think. Don't you, Roger?
Yeah. My first phrase that comes to mind anytime I'm asked that question is play by ear.
Right.
Put the paper away.
Yep.
Listen to a recording that you like. Emulate that. Learn to play it. I grew up in Sealyville, Indiana, a population of 1,200 people. For years, it was just me and the record player.
Yeah, me too. KU City was.
I was playing along with Clark Terry and Oscar Peterson and going, yeah, this is swinging. I like this.
Yeah.
I didn't have a technique book or a book that says play this scale for this chord.
Right. You can do that later. If you
the theory comes after the practice.
Yeah. That's what I used to tell my kids at Vanderbilt, and they looked at me like I was from another planet because all they did was read music, And but I always said, if you want to learn a certain tune, take a weekend off. Get the recording of it that you like. Play it all day Saturday. Play it all day Sunday. Try different things with it as you listen. And Monday morning, you can go to school and you know a new tune.
Yeah.
And I actually had that work with a cellist that was in my class, and she had never played anything but classical music. And I gave her a Helen Merrill record, and she learned the tune. And then I said, you're going to have to learn to swing it, because she was reading it like a classical piece, And so she worked on it over a weekend, and she came back to the class and she just knocked it out. I mean, she had all the stuff that a jazz player would play in the song,
Mm-hmm.
And she was so proud. But that was the only song she knew how to do that with. But I thought it would carry over to
I
another
tell my Vanderbilt students that when I learn a tune by ear, I never need a lead sheet. If I learn a tune from a lead sheet, I need it several times.
Right. Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, you
I
have
have
to use your ear.
I'm sorry. I have one more music question. I'm trying to pick one because I have like 10 left. I'm going to pick one. Okay, this is for everybody. Do you have a favorite BG album? I think we can all answer that. I can.
Oh my gosh.
I think Saturday Night Fever. Oh, not wrong BG.
Wrong BG.
Oh,
I love I love Dream Dancing, the Cole Porter album.
that's where I was going. That's
like that
one of
too.
my favorites. Yeah.
From studio. The live
My
album.
favorite is the Peggy Lee album.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Peggy Lee.
Yeah.
Ever. I love The Real Thing as well.
Yeah.
That to me, that's such it's just real. I mean, it's authentic, more authentic in the sense of, you guys have musical freedom in the studio, but it's you guys really getting to do what you dig in a little deeper. So
this fall, since we haven't recorded live for a couple of years, when Clifton Davis's album came out, I'm very proud of that album. I think it's one of the best things we've done. And he nailed it when he put the strings and the voices and everything.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It is a beautiful record. And he sings in Portuguese, and it's very, very almost operatic in some ways, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm proud of that project too.
And I like, here I go. I got 6 favorites. I'll Take Romance with Jeff Steinberg strings. Really
yeah. Yeah.
I like a lot of stuff that I did with Dennis.
Bill, we gave you a little bit of break, but I have 2 more questions for you. What new interest have you pursued since retiring as CEO of Maker's Mark? And then the other question was, are you still putting the 40 plus hours in and doing tours post-COVID?
Well, second first, I was spending a lot of time at the distillery because, I'm an engineer and I enjoy all the building, and Bourbon is booming and Makers is booming. And my job is to make sure that we don't wander off the reservation that was created by Mom and Dad. It's been such a successful formula. So I was doing that and visiting with people, and I just loved it. Had no responsibility, no budget, just having fun, doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then COVID came. That was the end of that. So, I mean, I'm going Friday this week, but it's first time in a couple of months, and it's just killing me. So I read a lot. My wife and I got bored as COVID came into existence, and we decided we needed a she shed in the backyard. So we've now become contractors, and we're building a place for the grandchildren to hang out and have parties and things.
That's very cool. That's a good way to spend your time.
Sure.
That's been fun.
And before on our way out, I want to set this up a little bit. Maker's Mark has been involved with the Lee Initiative, and Lee, the acronym is Let's Empower Employment. And forgive me, I'm doing a little bit of reading here because I want to do it justice, but it was founded in 2018, so it's a relatively new organization. But their mission is to create small but impactful programs to make a real difference in the lives of the next generation of restaurant industry professionals. This was founded by 2 people, veterans of the restaurant industry. We will help our community and inspire others to get involved, get active, give back, and identify a need for more diversity and equality in the restaurant industry, and find creative and forward-thinking solutions. And Maker's Mark has partnered with them for the community batch, which we got this great video that we're going to show. I'm going to maybe butcher this, but as I understand it, restaurants have their own special blend of sorts. Certain restaurants have their own special blend of Maker's Mark, and they took a little bit of all of them to create like equal parts of all of these different, and they put it in a bottle together.
Yeah.
And they are 100% of the money sales is going back to restaurants in need right now in COVID,
Well,
right?
and-
To the workers, correct?
We got involved because Chef Lee is in Louisville, and he's very distinguished, and he's a marvelous individual, and he does so much in the community. He reached out to Rob and said, if you got any ideas, we've got a lot of staff people just in Louisville
Yeah.
that are sitting at home. They're not getting, I mean, they're starving. They got to pay bills.
Right.
You know, so that's that was the impetus for us getting involved, to help him find a way for the various restaurants to feed their staff.
Mm.
And it raised a bunch of $1 million. So
Yeah,
that, I mean, it was
amazing.
a huge right off the bat.
Well, and in addition to Maker's Mark, I mean, other people can get involved. And can
Sure.
people buy the community batch? Is that available for sale, or do you know?
I think it's sold out,
Okay.
but I'm not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not. It's, you know, it went around the country, but every place I've checked, it went fast.
It's gone. I believe that. That's for a lot of reasons. I believe that. But I'll make sure that the information for Lee Initiative is in the description. And research the website. They have a beautiful website. There's so much information. You can learn about the community batch and Maker's Mark's contribution, but all these other restaurants and other people are giving back, and there are ways for everyone to donate if you want. I am so thankful that you guys would do this tonight. It's always fun to talk about jazz and hooch. So this is like the perfect show,
together.
in my opinion. They do very, very, very well. And Bill, I know you're a very important, very busy man. So thank you for spending some time with us tonight.
I have loved it. I finally get to meet Beegie and Roger, and this is it's a real treat.
Well,
And we'll get back to Cincinnati, and I'm going to
We're
start
gonna have to
thinking
be
about that.
Cincinnati. Nashville's okay. We can run in that direction.
We can do lots of different things.
Yeah.
So
When we get
we'll figure it
the
out.
Jazz Cave open at the workshop, BG will be back in there. Come down and hear a set.
I think that's what we'll do. That
I
sounds
think
like
that sounds
the
like
most
a good
likely
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Good idea.
really, it's really
Well,
good acoustics. It's a good place to play.
we're excited to be back. Y'all just, our whole thing is be careful, wear masks, stay vigilant, get your vaccination. If you've got pictures of you in a mask or getting your vaccine, you're, hey, let me see that.
Ooh,
Is that your Maker's Mark? Is that a Maker's Mark mask?
It is.
Look
a
at
message.
that.
And
That's a good looking mask.
I'm headed out into the world here in just a
So
second.
there you go. It's just perfect. Well, thank you all so much for watching. And Roger, thank you for joining us. I know it was such a burden to have to drink whiskey and hang out with us
All
tonight.
sacrifices must be made.
That's silly.
Well, thank you all so much. Be safe out
Nice
there.
to meet you, Bill.
As Maker's Mark's event manager, this year looked a little bit different. We had to pivot and change to execute experiences that were still worthy of that red wax seal.
The hospitality industry was hurt and hit pretty bad. We had to figure out what can we do to be as impactful as possible. And so we had to figure out how do we use what we're good at to raise money for this great cause. And so that the community batch was born. We took 37 accounts from across the nation. We combined all of those recipes to create the community batch. Put it in a cistern tank, and then we put it back into barrels. So we barrel batted it, which is something we've never done before. Finished it for 5 more additional weeks. And then what we did with the bourbon was that we gave it all to the Lee Initiative. We donated it. It didn't go through the 3-tiered system. Lee Initiative has every single bottle, and that means the Lee Initiative keeps every dime of that money. This is the first time that 100% of the money spent is going to help the hospitality industry. Every day is something new. It's been exciting and challenging. We're making history right now. The hospitality industry and the service industry, the people that help make Makers become the brand that it is today, are hurt. Job security isn't there anymore, and it's scary. We wanted to do something just to kind of lighten everyone's spirits and give them a chance to taste this. So I sat on the board of directors for USBG, and I'm still in an advisory capacity with them, and said, hey, let's do this event. We wanted to do something just to kind of lighten everyone's spirits and give them a chance to taste this. And Allie said, instead of getting people a chance to taste it, let's get them all a bottle. And we have enough liquid. So through the generosity of the state manager in Kentucky, Craig Wider, he actually made a donation to the Lee Initiative, which secured a bottle for all 50 people that attended the event. Jane Bowie, the director of innovation, hopped on a call with Lindsay Ofsasic, the director of the Lee Initiative, and we all just tasted the liquid. The conversation quickly went from talking about the Lee Initiative and the community batch to just friends talking to each other about tasting notes, what they're doing. People were commenting on artwork in other people's houses, and it was just a really good time.
This year for Clayton and Kroom's annual Friends and Family event, they invited Maker's Mark and the Lee Initiative to be a part of this. And something special that we were able to do for the first time was to debut the community batch bottle. Guests got to taste it and take a bottle home that day. Maker's Mark partnered with Paristown for their annual Fête de Noël celebration. This year we had a chalet that was all decked out with Maker's Mark. In those chalets, we were dipping bottles, dipping glassware. We also did some custom labels where we had a personal calligrapher come in and do personalized names for the celebration. We had a Maker's Hour, and during this Maker's Hour, you could have a hot cocoa with your favorite Maker's Mark and your custom mug to take home. Back in August, Maker's Mark and the Lee Initiative, we were part of the Bourbon Women's Symposium, where they were the first to know about the community batch, so we shared that with them. These Bourbon Women ladies were wanting a bottle of community batch. We hosted a special event just for them, where they could come to Louisville Stoneware, do a little bit of shopping, and pick up their community batch bottle.
We did the USBG event, got bottles in hands, and then the Clayton and Kroom event to get a little more bottles in hands. We're teasing this out. The big event was our Giving Tuesday event, and we have one in Lexington, one in Louisville, and then one in Northern Kentucky. The one in Louisville is at 610 Magnolia, which is where the first Relief Center started. And the idea behind this Giving Tuesday event was structured just like the relief centers that we opened up. It's really interesting to see it go full circle. When people pull in, they get barbecue for two, and then they get to have their bottle. Touchless delivery of you to get this delicious liquid. And then the Zoom call with Edward and Jane was perfect. You know, when those two get together, it's always fun.
I feel very lucky to work for Maker's Mark during this time of events not happening or postponing. And the ones that we did have, the support that we had from our local ambassadors and loyal fans of Maker's Mark came out to these fun events that we still try to have to make their holiday special.